All right, folks, this is the brand new Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Extreme Gen 5. It's a 16-inch Intel-based ThinkPad that performs super well. So it's a good competitor to something like the XPS 15, which is a 15.6-inch display. But here you get the full 16 inches. Now, it comes in a variety of different specs. You can start with an i7 12700H all the way up to an i9 12900H. You can also spec it from 8 gigs of RAM, don't do that, up to 32, which is also kind of excessive for most people. 256 gigs of storage, don't do that, all the way up to 2 terabytes out of the box. And of course, you can always upgrade the storage and the RAM on your own. So pricing on this starts at $3,000, which you will not have to pay because Lenovo does sales constantly. In fact, you can get into the i7 8 gig model for about $1,600 or $1,700, depends on the sale. And then going up from there, something like the i9 model with 16 gigs of RAM is closer to $2,500. So just sort of depends on which sale you try to take advantage of. There are many, and they are often. So people who are looking at this machine are looking for something that has good power and decent portability. It's not light. It's around 4.5 pounds, which is, gaming laptop level, but it also has a discrete GPU, something that not a lot of work machines actually have. And not a lot of people need them, which is the purpose of that. So if you're looking for that ThinkPad quality and the ThinkPad durability with the military specifications, and then you also want a discrete GPU and a bigger display, this is a good option, although it's going to cost you $1,600 just to start with it is an i7, only 8 gigs of RAM. That's not super cool. Now, every model has an infrared camera, so you can do Windows Hello for login, and that's really nice. And the I/O that's on these machines is way better than something like the Dell XPS 15 or the MacBook. So, actually the Mac was kind of stepped up. But anyhow, you have your proprietary power here, 2 Thunderbolt ports, HDMI out, and a headphone jack. And then on the other side, a full-size SD card reader, and then 2 USB-A ports. I'm just using one right now for a mouse because we're going to do a gaming test here in a moment. Now, this is a carbon fiber weave. It's on the top tier model, the 4K 32 gigs of RAM model, the one I have here. And it's cool. It helps with absorbing the fingerprints. They don't look quite as ugly, but it doesn't actually add any extra durability, and it doesn't really feel any different. It's a little rigid, but not by much. You have your very nice ThinkPad X1 logo here, which makes the device look super premium, and your Lenovo badge on the other corner. All right, keyboard is fantastic, and the display rotates full 180 degrees. And as I mentioned earlier, there is Windows Hello facial recognition, which I'm trying to do right now, sorry. Sorry, now you guys are shaking. Okay, so the camera is 1080p, but it's actually not all that good. So it's a step up from before, but it's not super sharp. So just, it is what it is. It'll get you through your Zoom calls, but you're not going to want to do like interviews or something with it. Okie dokie. So this is the 4K model. The 4K display supports up to 600 nits of brightness, and there's also a 500 nits of brightness version of the 4K. So when you're out there speccing, just take a look at that. But most models are 300 nits and 60 hertz. Every model is 60 hertz, actually. You just have to be wary. So that bottom trim level, the i7 and 8 gigs of RAM, it actually comes with a 1200p display, which is actually plenty for a device like this. And if you're going to do any gaming on this, if that's like, something you want to do for a couple hours a week, right? You're going to work most of the time and game a little bit, and you want to have one laptop, then you want to be aware of the resolution and then which GPU you pair it with. Because you can start with a 3050 Ti, which is not a very powerful machine. Then you go up to a 3060 and then a 3070 Ti and then a 3080 Ti. And regardless of which one you get, by the way, you're going to get lower power levels feeding to those machines than if you were to go with something like an actual gaming laptop, which can also support your work activities, but will have lower battery life. It'll be more, generally thicker and smaller display. But if you go with a bigger display, you're going to have to deal with like more weight. So it's a trade-off, right? It's a total trade-off with these things. Battery life is not good. It's about 6-7 hours but this is the 4K model with the more brightness, right? So if you go with the 1200p or even the Quad HD, you should get better battery life. Kind of depends on how you use the device. But I'm gonna go ahead and plug mine in. It does ship with a gigantic 230 watt power brick, which seems a little bit overkill for this device, but you know, hey, Lenovo knows better than I do. All right, I'm gonna fire up a game here. Let's start with Doom Eternal. So in my initial testing with Doom Eternal, I definitely was impressed. For this 3060 to push 4K at 60 frames per second on about medium settings across the board, that's pretty darn good. But the panel is not designed for gaming. So it may not translate in the video, but certainly in person, what I noticed was a lot of screen tearing. So even with VSync, you know, enabled, disabled, adaptive, triple buffering, I couldn't quite get a really good feel for like a smoothness as I was playing the game, even though it was hitting like 56 to 60 frames per second. So I was definitely locked in to a respectable frame rate, but the screen tearing was quite evident. I didn't notice much in the way of ghosting, but that could be because of the screen tearing. And you know, hey, these games are not optimized for work machines. So the fact that we have some, I think is actually pretty awesome. Okay, so, oh no, don't sign into Bethesda.net. Okay. Now the sound is okay. It's not gonna blow you away, but I don't think you need headphones. I don't think it's that bad. Okay. So yeah, I'm seeing screen tearing. If you want to see really bad screen tearing, I can show that to you. All right, here we go. So we'll get into the action. And you can notice in the top left that oh, look at that big thing. The frames really stay on point. I haven't played this game in a while. I don't remember what button to press when they're flashing. Oh, it's E. Okay, that made sense. So even with explosions, the game stays pretty much around 60 frames per second. And let me just double check, but I know I have it on 4K. Yep, 3840 by 2400, and we're at medium, I think. Okay, so we're at high settings, which is effectively above medium. So we have, I mean, there's a lot here, and there's no way it'll do Ultra Nightmare very well. So, like I said, that's not bad if you're looking for a machine that can do both game and work well. There are a number of considerations, like, you know, how much gaming do you expect to do, and at what quality level do you want to do it in, and how important is that screen. You know, if you're going to output to another display, then you probably don't care too much about what this machine is in terms of the specs, right? If your work calls you up and they say, hey, we can get you the 4K model, are you cool with that? Because the 4K can get you a 3080 or 3070. You might want to say yes if you have easy access to an external display. You just plug it in and away you go. Not bad. So anyway, the whole package here, I mean, can be a little bit spendy, but that's kind of the name of the game with the ThinkPads. You get a high quality build, you get really nice materials, and that classic ThinkPad look. Now the keyboard is, you know, it's exceptional, it's world class. I love it. It does have backlighting, and you know, it's not a gaming laptop, so it doesn't have quite the brightness of a gaming laptop keyboard. It doesn't have the personalization of a gaming laptop keyboard. But again, you're probably watching this because you're not a gamer. Like you work, but you want to do some gaming. I feel like I said that too many times. Okay, that's your X1 Extreme Gen 5 for 2022. Awesome machine. Thanks to Lenovo for sending it over, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.